Pokemon is not known for its romantic stories, but the few times that Pokemon does cater towards romance, it's always been a story of love and light. A story that leads two characters expressing their love to each other in some way, shape, or form. But in the 5th generation of Pokemon, everything got more mature. The games had aged the protagonists to symbolize how fans of the series were also older, and the story was the realest it's ever been to match that same audience. With that narrative in play, the manga also follows suit, as Pokemon Adventures deliver the love story that for the first time ever leads to a bittersweet ending. One that leads to one character's emotional downfall, and one that leads to the other perishing without getting to fulfill their own dream. Here's the love story of Black and White from Pokemon Adventures. But before we talk about their love story, we first need to talk about who they are. The Black and White arc starts off with the introduction of Black. Black is your typical happy-go-lucky I'm gonna win protagonist. He's basically a shonen MC. And just like a shonen MC, he's pretty dumb and just fixated on one thing. And that's beating the Pokemon League and becoming the champion. Black's dream is so strong that he can't focus on or think about anything else. To counteract this, he has his Munna named Musha come and eat his dream, which allows his mind to go blank and see things clearly, effectively making his deduction skills the complete opposite of a shonen MC. He's got the deduction skills of the smartest character in the anime with the help of his Musha. Through that, his courage, his battling skills, his commitment and determination, and his handsome looks, he's got everything a girl would want in a boy. The only thing he was lacking was smarts, but again, he's covered for that too, making him a perfect protagonist off the rip. As the story goes, Bianca, Cheren, and Black are all supposed to receive starter Pokemon and Pokedexes from Professor Juniper. But in a weird turn of events, Black gets Tempic in a Pokedex, and with one big scream about his dream, he sets off on his own journey before meeting Juniper and saying bye to his childhood friends. And it's crazy because Cheren and Bianca helped Black so much with his dream too, as Black used Bianca's father's Pokemon to battle his friends for fun. He even kept going to library after library to study and research everything he needed to know about how to become a Pokemon champion from the very get-go. He even saw Cedric Juniper on TV one day talking about how he's going to give out the Pokedexes to the new generation and formulated an entire game plan to go on his journey from there, all at the age of like 4 or whatever. And as Cheren says, when Black sets his mind to something, nothing can stop him, including remembering to say bye to them. But anywho, as Black goes about his journey and makes his way to Striaton City, we see N watching over him, which, by the way, did I mention that there's a potential love triangle going on? I mean, I personally don't think so, but part of the fandom does. Yeah, we'll talk about that when we get there. But for now, let's talk about how you can buy the manga straight from Japan through today's video sponsor. This video is sponsored by Zen Market. Looking to buy traditional Japanese products? Zen Market is a proxy shipping service that helps you buy and ship goods directly from Japanese websites without the barrier of needing to speak Japanese or live in the country to receive the items you purchase. You basically shop as if you live in Japan with over 10,000 stores to choose from. It's the closest thing you're gonna get to shopping in Japan, and you can get some crazy items like some sweet exclusive Japanese Pokemon cards or figurines. Or how about the original Japanese Pokemon manga or even Japanese snacks? Well, if you're looking for any of those, then Zen Market is definitely for you. But this time with the click of a button, and all your items from these different stores are consolidated into a single parcel with up to 60 days of free storage. Meaning that not only do you save shipping fees from shipping different parcels, but if you don't know if you want to add more to your order or not, you have plenty of time to do so before your parcel ships straight to you. Zen Market provides its services in 19 different languages with many shipping and payment methods to choose from, as well as great customer service. Their loyalty program allows for you to earn balance credits and up to 1% cashback. With over 2 million users worldwide, Zen Market is the best choice in proxy shipping services. Sign up with promo code HybridHero, which gets you 1,000 free Zen points as a sign-up bonus, which equates to 1,000 yen of international shipping, making it even easier for you to get your parcel delivered. So if you're interested in shopping as if you live in Japan, why not give Zen Market a try? Moving on, we have the more interesting character of the two, White. You see, Black, in my opinion, was a very fun character in the manga, and I really liked this character for sure, but again, the man is perfect, at least for now. He doesn't come with any real flaws as such, and thus no real room for development. White, on the other hand, makes her weaknesses and flaws very apparent, and is a totally unique character. At the age of 14, White has her own agency company with hired Pokemon performers for TV series, commercials, movies, and other forms of media. She's a full-fledged entrepreneur, and the best part is she's not doing it for the money, but she's doing it for the love of the art. But in the middle of one of her gigs, Black is out here yelling about his dream and is disturbing the whole production. And while the film crew is trying to shoo him away, White hears that for tomorrow's shoot, she needs a male and female Tepig, but she only has a female one. Luckily for her, Black's typic is a simp and sees White's typic Gigi in her Pokeball and sends it out himself so that he can play with her. Oh, how cute. Anyways, White takes advantage of this opportunity and hires Black in her agency because apparently this Galvantula damaging all the equipment was Black's fault according to the film crew, and they wouldn't let him go. But White said that BW agency will cover for all the damages because starting today, Black is with her. I'm telling you, it's a win-win for both of them. Because even though Black doesn't like it, it's not like he has the money to compensate for the damages anyway, so she's saving him more than he's saving her. In the distance, N sees White's hired Pokemon being used for filming and can't help but get emotional over the exploitation of Pokemon. But for White, she can't help but get emotional over how Tepig and Gigi put up such a beautiful performance. White is also incredibly kind towards her employees. For one, she has Tepig and Gigi sleeping inside a hotel while her and Black are camping outside, because they're the true artists. She puts her employees first at all times. And when she lectures Black about the damages about the equipment and how he's gonna have to work for 49 more times to pay for everything, she thanks him and his Tepig's help and is more grateful than anything. She even tells Black that he doesn't actually need to work 49 more times, but just a bit longer. Her dream is to run a show business, even if she never makes a profit, raising a first-class Pokemon performer and a first-class Pokemon entertainer. That's what matters to her, and that's her dream. Black doesn't say a word here, but his Musha resonates with White the same way that it resonates with Black, because Musha is a Pokemon that's drawn to those with very strong dreams. Seeing this, Black can't help but acknowledge it, and so he calls her boss from here on out. They head to bed, and I guess they only had one tent? So Black sleeps inside the tent and White sleeps outside, I guess, but in the middle of the night, they're attacked by something. White trembles in fear and is unable to retaliate, even when Black tells her to use her Pokemon. But since she doesn't attack back, Black does the work instead. It ends up being a Timber who's doing construction for Team Plasma. And the next morning, they're greeted by Ghitsis' famous speech from Accumula Town. Ghitsis propagates to everyone about how Pokemon would be better off being separated from humans, and that's Team Plasma's goal to liberate every single Pokemon. While this is happening, some people brush off Team Plasma's speech while others question it, while some others fully give into it and release their Pokemon on spot. And though Black and White try to stop people from doing so, they fail in convincing others that their Pokemon need them just as much as they need their Pokemon. Angered, Black tells White that he's gonna go stop Ghitsis in Team Plasma and runs off on his own. And while White does grab him and try to stop him, Black argues that releasing these Pokemon is also hurting them, and he's gonna stop Ghitsis from propagating any more lies. Black continues to run off, and White gets a call for a new gig, but has to return the call in a little bit because she's fixated on going after Black. Once she catches up to Black realizes that Team Plasma must have been doing this for quite a while, because judging by its behavior, the Galvantula that he fought previously and the one that he also surprisingly caught was most likely one of these Pokemon. Gigi reminds White that she has to take the call to the agency and runs off, while Black debates what to do about Galvantula. Black admits to Galvantula that he was going to release it before he heard the speech, but he realizes if he releases Galvantula now, it's going to feel like it was abandoned twice in a row. Someone from the side comes out and tells Black that Galvantula is trying to talk to Black, but Black laughs it off, saying that it looks as if Galvantula trying to tell him something, but talk like by using words? That's ridiculous. And to that, N comes up and tells Black that it's sad that he can't hear them. White, on the other hand, takes the word call and is bummed out because she quickly finds out they decide to go with a different agency. She tries to bounce back quickly by being grateful to Black because thanks to him, she has both Tepig and Gigi now. But then she kept going back and forth between the pros and cons of Black's actions and behavior, and she also reflects on Black and his character and realizes that she doesn't know all too much about him. And then she looks at Tepig and Gigi and realizes that they get along a lot better than they do. But despite that, she's gonna head back to Black, and this is where we see one of our first instances of this shipping come to play. Because in all of this, she said Black's name like a dozen times and is quite embarrassed when she realizes it. And she even goes a step further and admits that he's quite handsome. But when she goes back to see Black, she sees him get thrown back by another Pokemon trainer who he still doesn't know the identity of. In fact, he doesn't even know why he's fighting, and despite all of his efforts, he seems to be totally overpowered. White is shocked and questions if he can't win the battle, to which N reveals himself and says that White is right. He can't win the battle, and that the reason why he can't win is because Black keeps his Pokemon locked up in Pokeballs. Black goes on a full team assault, while N reveals all of his Pokemon that he currently has on hand. Black pulls out his Pokedex to inspect N's team, to which N grabs Black's hand and proclaims that this is the reason why he locks up Pokemon in their Pokeballs. At this point, we get a flashback scene to when N was inaugurated as the king of Team Plasma, the intro scene to the Black and White games, and we see how he's crowned to take on the mission of Pokemon liberation. explanation. We cut back to the battle between N and Black, where N introduces himself and keeps going on about how Pokedexes are imprisoning Pokemon for nothing, and how you can't hear the voices of Pokemon from there. But Black doesn't understand a word he's saying and interprets it as N wanting to have a battle, and he's down since he anyways wants to become the champion. Pause. Is this still a shipping video? We're going over one huge battle in extensive detail here. You see, we can't talk about Black and White's love story without talking about N. Again, there's a reason why the fandom thinks that there's a love triangle going on here, but more so than that, N is there to both give Black and White their own trauma and unique character arcs, so we need to talk about N and his character in the manga to see how Black and White deal with him and progress as individuals before we get to the romantic conclusion. And there's a whole lot more to talk about before then. Despite Black's determination and vigor to fight N, Black warns White that if worse comes to worse, she's gonna have to fight. Because though White is inexperienced and unwilling, if Black goes down, N just might keep attacking, in which case she's gotta defend them, which kudos for Black for realizing when he may potentially be unmatched. N's Portland comes out and sneakily attacks Gigi, and Black pushes White to fight, but in distress, White proclaims that she can't because she's never had a Pokemon battle before. Black cannot comprehend this, but N doesn't give them a moment to rest. As he continues with his full-on assault, he tells Black that he's listening to his Pokemon and that Black isn't, which is why he's gonna win, and proceeds to break out into tears when he claims that Pokemon will never be happy with people. And what does Black say to this? He tells N, blah blah blah, shut up. Full-on Naruto mode with it. He fully showcases his team's willingness to be with him and how they themselves want to achieve the goal of being champion. Even Galvantula expresses interest in joining Black. He then explains that the Pokedex isn't a tool of evil or anything. People are naturally interested in Pokemon because they like them so much, so to have a device to learn more about them is really helpful. He takes it a step further and tells N that he's right. He can't hear these voices that he keeps talking about, and so, just like everyone outside of N, he relies on Pokeballs and a Pokedex to understand one another, and to prove this, he and Tepig attack N head-on, knocking some sense into him. As during the attack, N proclaims that he heard Tepig's voice and never knew that a Pokemon could feel this way. Through this, N calls back his Pokemon and walks away, claiming that he stumbled across another puzzle that he cannot solve. After N's leave, White mentions how N sounds a lot like Team Plasma, and he's probably one of them, but Black states that he doesn't know because N doesn't seem to be all that bad, and that's because during the fight, Muna was able to eat a part of N's dream, and through that dream, we get to see little N hugging and being with his Pokemon during a happier and simpler time. He claims that even though N sees things differently than them, he's still a good guy at heart, which has always been one of Black and White's key themes. Finally, to wrap up this battle, we see N alongside his injured Pokemon walk up towards N's castle. Cut forward a bit, and Sharon and Bianca are slighted after Black ran off without them, but they end up seeing Black with White chilling at a cafe, which is actually just the Striaton City gym. Bianca can't believe that Black would be going on a date with a girl like that, to which Sharon states that it doesn't look like a date to him. But is it though? Anywho, when White leaves, they confront Black about the whole thing and clears up the air by mentioning how he's employed to her and all, but still his friends are pretty upset that he ditched them early on, which led them to many issues during the triple battle against the Striaton City gym leaders, but through a few trials and tribulations, they managed to work together and sort out the relationship with one another, all the while each of them winning a Striaton City gym badge. White then comes back to steal Black from his friends, and Bianca realizes that White really does run a talent agency, clearing up her suspicions, but hey, if you ask me, she had perfect reason to be suspicious. This may not seem relevant to Black and White's romance just yet, but don't worry, you'll see why as Bianca and White will have their moment in the future. The next story arc isn't too relevant to the romance either, as it's the Dream Yard arc and Team Plasma is stealing Black's Muna, but you do see White begin to adjust to Black's antics here, and as he screams out his dream, she's still thrown off by it, but she smiles through it, and when Black fails and loses consciousness, she's the one to help him and get him to safety. When Fennel's confused about Black's dream being eaten by Muna, White is the one to explain to her, so she's understanding him a lot better as time goes on. One key thing to note here is that this is the first time in the manga that we see what happens to Black when Musha is not there to eat his dream. He basically fuses out and doesn't know how to operate, and this will be very important much later in the video. Black and White make their way to Nacrene City because Black needs to go get a badge from Lenora, but first, White does White things, like making sure her and her whole crew are spiff and tidy, and if they're not, she'll give him a touch-up, like zipping up Black's jacket for him, and Black being visibly uncomfortable. And while White is trying to advertise her showbiz and is garnering attention due to Tepig Gigi's now famous performance, Black is kinda messing things up by going about doing his own thing. and tries to run off to fight Lenora, causing White to lose another job. But they're in Nacrene City after all, a place where all the upcoming artists come together, and she's so excited that nothing's gonna stop her. She tries to teach Black some marketing techniques, and Black actually gets excited to try it himself. But the director from the old shoot runs into them, and more or less the same thing from the Galvantula shoot happens, where something goes wrong and the video team thinks that Black did it, and he solves the case. But the important thing to note here is how supportive Black is of White's dream now. I know he just messed up a few things for her, but it's in seeing her work so hard and wanting to support her that he ends up getting his act together. White, by the end of it, even recognizes that trying to fit Black into something that she wants isn't the way to go, and appreciates his battling skills a lot more. It's really sweet how they begin to understand each other and make room for each other, but she still teases him and pushes him to help her out with marketing just a bit. And then once their video gig is done, she wishes him good luck on his gym battle. Black heads off, and the director from earlier asks White to join him on a meeting with the people in Nimbasa City as they're trying to come up with a new entertainment project for the city. White is super nervous and reluctant, and even while she's on the meeting with Elisa and the others, she's not sure of herself, but somehow in the midst of all of her emotions, she proposes the idea of a Pokemon musical. Yep. Hey, listen, I hated the musical too, but in this story, if it makes White happy, I guess it's fine. At least she wasn't the one who created it in the games. Black defeats Lenora, and White is standing there waiting for him all smiley and happy, and she grabs his hands, and Black is blushing, saying that his victory isn't that big of a deal, but you know the boy is so happy to have her support. But yeah, she was definitely just super excited to tell him that she's creating a Pokemon musical in Nimbasa. Her excitement is so real that she's just swinging Black around like it's nothing, and Musha can't even help itself but wanting to go after to eat White's dream. The events of Pinwheel Forest take place, and both Berg and Clay are introduced into the story. Team Plasma also makes steps towards obtaining Zekrom, the Dragon of Ideals, so I think you know who's gonna be the one with the Dragon of Truth later on in the story. After exiting Pinwheel Forest, Virizion rushes through, and just by its run, it's able to create a strong gush of wind that totally tears through Black and White's clothes. Black wants to stay back to inspect the Pokemon, but White is in a rush to get new clothes. And when they make it to Skyar Bridge, she realizes what a mess Black is in and tries cleaning him up. But Black and Tula end up having a lot of fun doing that. So much fun that the Castelia City janitor dude shows up and gets angry at Black for messing up the bridge. In typical Pokemon logic, this equates to now having a battle, and Black skillfully manages to defeat the janitor, where he reveals that it was indeed Virizion who messed up their clothes. He also proceeds to tell them how he's the president of the Battle Company, and White didn't miss the opportunity to network with him, and through this, she has all the facilities needed for the BW agency and her Pokemon in Castelia City. Side note, Black's Tepig goes on a whole big side quest with this boy who's actually a Zoroark. Poor Tep didn't understand what happened, but he reunites with Black, and White comes to pamper him and Gigi. And in Castelia City alone, she gets so many jobs and is super happy and successful, and as they're walking, White can't help but smile as she looks at Black. She even tells Black that he's basically paid off half of what he owes, so Tepig has been super hard at work, and White even gets him a Castelia Cone as I'll help Black and Tep in battle. Black can't believe that she stood in line that long just to get him a Castelia Cone, because if you remember from the games, those are high in demand. And to that, White tells him that she's glad he asked about this, because from now on, she wants to support him in his dream, and he's just taken aback. Ah, mutual support, you gotta love it. Even better, she doesn't really understand his dream of becoming champion in Pokemon battles and all, but she sees the work that he's putting in, and she respects that and is willing to support where she can. She knows Black is completely broke, and she knows that trainers need all kinds of items to keep battles going, and for that, White is willing to pay for all of Black's expenses. White does request that Black stay with her and continue to work for her, and that when he appears in the Pokemon League, he'll wear the BW Agency's company logo as a sponsor. Black happily agrees to this. As White grabs his hand, he starts blushing again. Okay, can we admit, the boy definitely at least has a crush on her. White goes up to Tep and is excited to tell him that she can keep working with him, when suddenly, Tepig starts to evolve. Black is excited to see Tepig evolve, but White is an absolute wreck, because even though she just told Black that she wants to support him in his dream, all that's on her mind right now is how well Tepig and Gigi look together. And so, beyond Pokemon logic, she presses the B button for Black and cancels Tepig's evolution. Somehow. And before they can question it, Black has to take Tepig and run off to his gym battle with Berg. While his battle is going on, Black isn't fully composed and isn't fighting at full strength, as he's deliberately holding Tepig back from fighting. Sure, he's got Brav the Braviary, but it managed to go down early in the fight, and while Tepig would be his next best bet, he's concerned about White and her dream. After a bit more work, White decides to go and support Black by watching his gym battle, and as she walks in, she sees Black talk to Tep about how he held back on purpose because because he was concerned for White. But at the same time, he knows that he can't beat Berg unless he goes all out. Tep struggles against Duel, and White and Gigi can't bear to look. And as Tep looks as though it's fully defeated to a smackdown, we see Tep catch and break the Rock by evolving into Pig Knight, giving him the victory. And then Black realizes that White was behind him for all of it. He's excited about his victory, but he's also super concerned for her and her feelings. But there isn't much time for that, as Iris comes in telling all of them that Bianca's Pokemon went missing. So they immediately switch gears, and Pig Knight gets a chance to really show off its new evolution during this time. Once they retrieve Bianca's Litwick and the other stolen Pokemon, Black and Pig Knight realize how much work they have for the BW agency and that they're gonna have to cancel all of it. And White comes in to give Black quite the scolding. JK, you really think I'd be hyping these two up if White was that inconsiderate? She would never say something like that. In fact, she took this time to turn a problem into a possibility and market Knight and Gigi in a different way, and they already have 3 shows lined up. She took the whole evolution thing like a champ, and beyond that, let's keep it a buck here. Even if the evolution didn't benefit her, she would have been happy for the evolution to just help Black with his own dream, and she never would have wanted to compromise that in any way. Hey, if you're enjoying this video, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Videos as long as these don't come easy and cost quite a bit to make, so just like White getting the support from Black, I could use your support to make my YouTube channel happen. Also, not trying to spoil it, but Black 2 and White 2 also have a manga, so if you want to stay tuned for that video, you should probably hit the notification bell while you're at it. So far, we've covered up to the first 3 volumes of the Black and White manga, and if you look at all the cover arts, it looks fairly simple and fun. But if you take a look at the 4th volume cover, you can tell that things are about to take a spin in a way that I don't think anyone would have predicted. As they make their way to Nimbasa City, they first have a little detour to Liberty Garden, where they encounter and befriend Victini, and then proceed to the desert resort to make it to Nimbasa City. However, upon arriving at the desert, the environment is too harsh for them to proceed, but White doesn't let this stop her, so she heads back to Castella City to buy both them equipment so they can proceed through the desert. Meanwhile, as Black is waiting, he stumbles across a strange man playing a gambling game with the construction workers. Black is intrigued, but I gotta say, kids, don't gamble, never gamble, because Black's intrigue gets him knocked out by the end of this. Seriously, it turns out that the gambler was actually Grimsley, and while he does nothing to hurt Black, they actually stumble upon an intruder Team Plasma Grunt who Grimsley swiftly defeats and ties up. And after doing so, he puts Black through a decision that he can't make. Black has so many questions as to why Grimsley, a member of the Elite Four, is here and all, and Grimsley says that he can answer if Black defeats him in a Pokemon battle. However, if Grimsley wins, he wants Black to give up something that means a lot to him. As the information that Grimsley is willing to provide is so valuable, it's only natural that Black provides something of equal value. Black is torn between sticking to his gym leader challenge or to fight a member of the Elite Four, something he's been dreaming about forever. And because he's so torn between the two and can't decide, he collapses in exhaustion to Grimsley's amusement. The next thing you know, when Black wakes up, White is there and explains that she carried Black, the Team Plasma Grunt, and his Maractus that was left all tied up, all by herself. Well, actually it was by using Black's bravery, but still, she managed to pull through, and Grimsley left a message telling that whoever found them exactly what to do. It's another encounter for both White and Black with Team Plasma, and them realizing that Team Plasma's goal isn't entirely noble. So they hand the grunt over to the police because White has way more important things to do because it's time for her musical. White and Black arrive at the Pokemon musical, and White is on top of things during the rehearsal. She's giving it her all and putting in as much work as possible to make everything happen. Black and Musha are so impressed, but Black is wondering as to how and why White became the boss of everything when White was just the one who pitched the idea. That's when Elisa comes into the manga in the most fan-servicey way possible. Yep. That's Elisa in a way that I never thought I'd see her. They could have presented her in any other way, but oh well. Elisa essentially said that White kept bringing up more and more good ideas, so she was the one who became in charge of everything. Black is just shocked to find out that he's been talking to the Nimbasa City gym leader this whole time, but he's even more surprised to learn that Elisa knows who Black is, and it turns out that this is because Elisa and White have been having some girl talk. Who knows what White shared with Elisa, but we do know that she at least said that Black was really cute, to which Elisa agrees with. Okay, come on guys. These are the most obvious romantic signs in Pokemon that you will ever get. Not in the real world. Don't think like that. No. The musical starts and Elisa knocks it out of the park, and White is ever so grateful. Since the musical ended, Elisa invites Black to her gym challenge, but White runs into an issue where they need 200 prop cases that they can't deliver. It's either 200 or 200,000, but I'm gonna assume it's 200. Black wants to stay back and help, but Elisa tells Black to let her figure it out herself. Since the Driftful Bridge is closed, they have to think of other means to get the prop cases here, as that's something that White wanted to do for the audience of the show, to give them all a prop case just for attending. And even when the stupid director wants to cut costs here, White decides to spend her own money just to make sure the show goes well for everyone else. She ends up calling someone to send the packages via air, and for this, White had to stall the beginning of the show a bit, and then stall some more as fans were getting upset. But right in the nick of time, Skyla appears with prop cases and even gives them an aerial show. The fans love not only both the shows, but the prop cases as well, leaving White and the whole team emotional about the success of their project and how touched the audience was. White's team tells her to head to bed as she's been working non-stop, and she goes to leave for some shut-eye. But on the way there, she falls dizzy because of all the fatigue. And while she's about to collapse, someone grabs her hand and offers her to take a seat and rest. And while White is falling unconscious, Gigi is very evidently freaking out. And there's even more reason to freak out, because after this, we see White on the Nimbasa City Ferris wheel with N really close by. As if this wasn't creepy enough, this implies that somehow N was there stalking White, caught her as she fell, she rested on what looks to be the side of a street, fell unconscious, and N somehow picked her up and carried her all the way to the Ferris wheel and placed her there with him. Or maybe Servine did all the lifting, I don't know, but either ways, that's incredibly creepy, and I don't get how no one stopped them. Anywho, though N and Servine have White and Gigi trapped, and the stakes are looking high, we immediately cut to Black's gym battle with Elisa. Elisa's gym has a malfunction with the roller coasters, and so she tells Black to come back later. But despite that, Black wants to battle now, and to his dismay, he has to end up fighting Elisa as the roller coaster is moving. But he does his best to make use of the unique circumstance that he's in. He's losing the large majority of this match, but when Elisa asks why he doesn't use Musha to help him here, he states that he promised that he would never rely on Musha's help for a Pokemon battle, as there are some things that he has to figure out on his own, so that his Pokemon trust him, just like players of a sports team would trust their coach. Elisa admires nobility, and as she should, because Black uses the out-of-control roller coaster to finish her off, leading to another Elisa butt shot. You thought I was going to say victory, didn't you? This scene is also where Black misses his badge and goes outside the gym on the roller coaster to see a Thundurus, another legendary encounter for Black, and one that Elisa also admires. And while there's a lot for Black to think about, he runs off to see White. When Elisa looks into what went wrong with her gym, we come to know that the Zorua from earlier was messing around with the controls in what looks to be an effort to stall Black so that he couldn't reach White on time, because this Zorua looks like it's awaiting N's return. But that Zorua is going to have to wait for some time, because right now we have the single most tense part of the whole story, a part of the story that won't be forgotten by anyone who has read it. As N and White are atop of the Ferris wheel in the middle of a thunderstorm, N proclaims that Thundurus has struck because the Pokemon are angry at people. White notices people down below watching them and is looking to see if she can get their help. But to her horror, it turns out to be Team Plasma. Not just any Team Plasma grunts though. One of them was the one that White turned into the police, but was saved by N. White gets a confirmation that N truly is a part of Team Plasma, but she finds out that not only is he part of Team Plasma, he is in fact Team Plasma's king, saving Pokemon and banning the ones who fight for Pokemon rights together. That's his job as king, appointed by Ghitsis of course. N gives his classic speech about Ferris wheels and asks White if she's following, but she freaks out and says that she doesn't understand anything he's saying, even when it comes to Pokemon liberation. N is surprised but says that he doesn't understand White either, but unlike her, he's actually been keeping a close eye on her because he wants to understand her and asks her to explain the musical. White gets terrified again as N approaches Gigi, and while White tries to protect her, Servine slaps her aside. N doesn't understand. Why would people exploit Pokemon to put a performance like a musical? Why would Pokemon want to imitate people? It's a paradox to him. So when he asks White to clarify why she's in showbiz, she offers to tell him, hoping that he'll get it with her explanation. When White was a little girl, she was watching a musical be performed, and this musical was one that only was performed by people. In the middle of the show, a little Cubchoo that no one expected climbed on stage and started to dance and sing alongside all the human performers. It was unplanned, but the audience and the Pokemon loved it so much. No one tried to stop the show either. They just let the Pokemon express itself. That's when she realized that Pokemon have a desire to express themselves just like people. And in seeing the joy that this Cubchoo had as it danced on stage, White sought out to give other Pokemon a chance to experience creative fulfillment, and other people a chance to enjoy watching Pokemon perform. White tells N that though it feels like Pokemon are doing things against their will, that he's got it wrong. Some Pokemon love to express themselves and be on stage, and when she asks if she's wrong, to her surprise, N says that she's right. Just like how there are people who are good at sports, and some good at art, and others who are good at other things, the same applies to Pokemon, where there are different Pokemon who like to do different things, including performance. But he counters by saying that aspect is only a part of them. It's not everything, and that by placing too much weight over a talent like theatrical talents, people may be suppressing the instinct that every Pokemon has, the capacity to battle. As Pokemon fight, they grow and eventually evolve. To suppress that to determine whether a Pokemon is usable for other activities, in his mind, violates the essence of a Pokemon. And he pursues this by asking a now composed Gigi who's comfortable around N if she wishes to fight just as badly as she wishes to sing or dance. He even gets Gigi to think by asking her how she felt when Tep evolved into Pignite, and grew stronger by asking her if she also wants to experience the joy of victory in a battle. N out of nowhere has a Servine attack and launches Gigi into the air. White in desperation pleads to N that Gigi doesn't know how to fight, to which N replies by saying that it's not that she doesn't know how to, but it's simply because White won't let her fight. Even when White questions N about Team Plasma's philosophy, he retaliates by asking if she seriously believes that Pokemon have no desire to fight. If that's the case, then she isn't hearing the voices of her Pokemon. It's not a crime to create a musical or let them do different things, but not listening to the voices of one's own Pokemon, that's the true crime. Gigi gets up with a fire in her eyes and attacks Servine with the very same fire, which even throws White off guard. Gigi lands successfully and is absolutely proud of herself for performing in battle, while White comes to a horrific realization. N congratulates her, saying she's powerful. So powerful that she could probably even defeat the Pokemon League champion, a Pokemon with a bright future ahead for battling. Gigi turns excited to White, but White cannot process what's happening. She cannot fathom Gigi being fulfilled by Pokemon battles. She cannot fathom the fact that she hasn't heard Gigi's voice this entire time. She wishes to escape from this harsh reality that she's facing, and she tries to, but when you run away from reality, reality hits you right back. White tells Gigi that they're gonna jump from where they are on the Ferris wheel. She asks Gigi to come with her as White can catch her. White starts to fall backward as she's pleading for Gigi to come with her, but as she falls, Gigi decides to stay back with N. White falls, and N rises. Rises and claims that, as he's the one who hears all the Pokemon voices, he will be the one to defeat the Pokemon League champion, and later, the one to free every Pokemon from all their trainers. N commands Servine to go with White, and as White lies there, empty and broken, the two trainers can only think of one thing: Gigi defeating the Pokemon League champion. Night falls and Black is on a full search for White with his team when Marshall appears, lugging White across his shoulder. Black doesn't recognize Marshall at first and assumes that White has been captured and attacks him, but when Marshall of the Elite Four overwhelms him, Black recognizes him and apologizes. Marshall explains to Black that he found White laying unconscious by the Ferris wheel and that he should probably take her to the hospital, and while he would do it himself, he's in a bit of a hurry. Black apologizes but is confused as to why Marshall left the Servine with them, and Marshall's confused, saying that it was with White when he found her. Later, we see that the person that Marshall was in a hurry to meet was none other than the champion himself, Alder. White is unconscious at the hospital, mumbling the same words that she couldn't stop thinking about, when Black and Pignite realize that Gigi is gone. Black falls asleep on his chair when White comes to, but seeing Servine leads her to scream due to trauma. The nurses and doctors reveal that there's no real injury to her, but there is some level of shock. Black takes her outside and White tells him everything that happened. Black is furious, but White tries to explain that N didn't steal or liberate Gigi, but that Gigi chose to stay out of her own will. Black doesn't hear any of it and starts to suspect that Servine is there as N's spy, as was with White on the Ferris wheel. While Black is trying to get a hold of Servine to find N, he keeps fumbling but actually comes up with an idea without Musha's help for once. But that idea is simply to ask Marshall, so I don't know how great of an idea this really is. Meanwhile, Chris the Baker comes to support the two and even asks White for an autograph, as she was the creative genius behind yesterday's Pokemon musical. Yeah, all of this happened in one day. Quite a memorable day, don't you think? Black yells at Chris to give White some space because she's not feeling well, but Chris tells the two that she knows and hears all sorts of things, like where Marshall is and who he met up with. He went to the Battle Subway, another project that was happening in parallel to the Pokemon musical, and as we know, he met up with and is currently fighting Alder. The two have a battle, and while it looks like Marshall is winning, Alder ultimately takes the win. Apparently, Marshall has beaten Alder twice and lost him 1,076 times. Crazy. But it's not as crazy as how Gigi is about to disrespect Alder, I promise. Black introduces White to Marshall and tells White that Marshall is the one who saved her, and further inquires if Marshall saw anything or anyone else. When the stupid Nimbasa Mary comes running in and caring all about money and stuff, man, I hate this guy. No care or concern for her, and even after Black explains the situation, he was just concerned about deals regarding the Battle Subway with Alder. Maybe and was right to some extent, who knows. The group goes to find Alder just to see him playing with all kinds of wild Pokemon. Not just a few, but a whole flock of them. They all sense Alder's kindness and sense how Alder treats all Pokemon equally. And for Alder, he loves to play with all Pokemon, whether they're on his team or not. Just playing, nothing more, nothing less. White sees this and some life returns to her eyes. Marshall tells the group that since Alder's playing, they probably won't get his attention anytime soon. So he takes them to the Battle Subway and introduces them to the subway bosses, Ingo and Emmett. Marshall tells them that it's a good time to test out their battling skills, and while Black is eager to try it, he, with a super jumbled mind, declines for White's sake. White comes behind him and thanks him for being so considerate. Black tries to make excuses and hide his feelings for White, like by pitting it on Servine again, but White talks about how much fun Alder is having instead. She notices how Alder isn't expecting his Pokemon to be anything. Not strong, not beautiful, he's just simply connecting with them. Black questions her and why she's speaking about all this. White goes into a deep reflection and very adamantly states that she hasn't given up on her dream, but at the same time, she's not ignoring what N said. In fact, she's seriously considering it. Not just considering it, but actually admitting that N was right, and that she didn't hear Gigi's voice. She couldn't accept the truth, and so she ran away from it. Despite how traumatic of an experience this was for her, and mind you, this all happened just yesterday, White claims that it might be a good thing that Gigi got to experience Pokemon battles and be with N. Because now that Gigi has got to experience both showbiz and Pokemon battles, Gigi now has the freedom to choose between the two. And while White is confident that Gigi will pick showbiz and ultimately choose to be with White, for the time being, White decides it's time for her to take a ride on the Battle Subway. Well, if she could even throw a Pokeball, that is. She's seen trying to battle and capture dealing with Chris's help. White temporarily shuts down her agency and returns the Pokemon to their respective owners so that she can go on her training arc on the Battle Subway. All of the Pokemon for her shows were other people's Pokemon, minus Gigi. And without Gigi or any agency work lined up, she feels kind of empty, but Chris reminds her that she's looking for a new partner Pokemon, one that will help her during her fights on the Battle Subway. Marshall catches Black sulking at the fact that he doesn't get to go on the Battle Subway, and while he does want White to go, he wants to go too. Marshall tells him to be supportive of other people's dreams and tosses Black over to White to help her out. But that deerling that she was trying to catch got so angry at White that even Black couldn't do much to help when it attacked her. That's when we finally see Servine appear and defend White. That's when Black realizes that Servine is actually acting as White's Pokemon. Black tells White to give it a command, and just like Black suspected, Servine followed through. Black gets excited for White, and she tells Black that it's too early to celebrate because she doesn't know what to do past this point. And Black decides to teach her by showing her in parallel. Black finds himself at Tortuga, and the two simultaneously catch a new Pokemon to each of their parties, leading to a well-needed celebration. How sweet! We later find out that the Tortuga that Black caught originally belonged to Marshall, which I guess that makes sense as to why a fossil Pokemon is just chilling out in the wild. Because it was so hard-headed, Marshall had to let it go. But as fate would have it, it landed up with Black. Alder returns and he got so caught up in playing with Pokemon that he forgot about his other duties. And he's just catching strays from Black and White. But he claims that he isn't just playing with the Pokemon. No, he's on a journey of spirit. When Alder asks White why she's on the Battle Subway, she tells Alder how she's been separated from a Pokemon who's very dear to her, but that it will have a time to choose what it wants to do. And when that time comes, she doesn't want Gigi to only have one path to go on, but multiple paths to choose from. And since she wants her Pokemon to choose from multiple paths, it only makes sense that as a trainer, she explores multiple paths and picks the one that she wants between them as well. Which is why she's decided to ride the Battle Subway. Alder and Black are impressed. Alder is so impressed that he doesn't even know what to say. Ingo and Emmett appear and call upon White to enter the Battle Subway. And this is where it finally happens. 4 whole volumes in, and finally, White and Black have to go their own ways. White wishes Black off, and Black is blushing, scurrying for an excuse to have some sort of tie to White going forward. And he, of course, chalks him wanting to be with her to the fact that he still owes her some money, and the boy has never been so happy to be in debt in his entire life. As the train heads off, Black yells out to White, claiming that he's still her employee, that he's going to make his dream come true by entering the Pokemon League and wearing the BW Agency's logo on his uniform, just like he promised. And with one last yell, he tells White to not give up on her dream and sends Brave off with her, as both Brave and Black wanted to make sure she was safe and sound. And plus, she needed a third Pokemon for the battle subway anyways. And with that parting gift, Black wishes her off, and the two go about their separate ways. Man, what a journey so far. And that's not the end of it. In fact, we're not even at the halfway point of the manga. This again was volume 4 out of 9 different volumes. The reason why this one took forever to explain is because this was White's character arc, and in my eyes, the volume that solidifies her as the best character in the story. Sure, while Black may be the true protagonist, as we will see him be one of the two legendary heroes alongside N real soon, White demonstrates the most amount of growth and maturity amongst the three of them. I say that because Black is hard-headed and doesn't consider any other paths but the one he set for himself. And while he's trying to understand others, still has some blinders on, and honestly in this story, he doesn't come off as gray as he does in the Black and White games. It's White who ironically comes off more gray because she gives herself the opportunity to really understand others, in this case both N and Black, and now even other Pokemon. There was so much growth in this one volume that we had to cover the entirety of it here in this video. But for better or for worse, this is not the case with the next two volumes, as Black and White are separated from each other and they go on their own little training arcs. Black mainly goes about his gym challenge, getting him the Driftwood City Gym Badge from Clay and the Mistralton City Gym Badge from Skyla, but only after she pushes him off the Celestial Tower and after she partakes in a bunch of fan service. White, on the other hand, is training on the Battle Subway, meets up with Chantel, who's also part of a little bit of fan service, and unknowingly witnesses the three legendary genies get captured. She also goes on a whole side quest with Bianca, where she demonstrates her growth as a trainer, befriends Meloetta, captures a few new Pokemon for her team, and gets Juniper's new Pokedex, making her the second Pokedex holder of the Unova region. During this time though, we definitely see the two characters think about each other here and there, showing how no matter where they go, they're still the ones who occupy their thoughts. It's pretty cute. Other major things you should know from this is that Gym Leaders 2 to 6 teamed up with Black to protect the Darkstone, but Team Plasma and the Shadow Tree had basically bopped them using the genies that they caught. Yeah, they actually caught legendaries before the legendary dragon, who would have thought? And also ended up getting the Darkstone and befriending Zekrom, so that's there. And then Bryson had to take Black on a training arc, so he's ready to take on N, where he ended up receiving not only the Icarus City Gym Badge, but also the Lightstone to unlock and befriend Reshiram. But of course, not yet. Actually, before trying to unlock the Lightstone, Black encounters the Swords of Justice, and while he does get their approval, they don't end up helping him in his effort. And you know, that help would have been really nice because, you won't believe it, only 7 gym badges in, and Alder and Marshall are just on a stroll. And who do they run into? None other than N, who's pulled up to challenge Alder with a team that consists of Archeops, Darmanitan, okay, good picks, Zekrom, which is overkill, but he kinda has to make up for it because he has a freaking Timple and that Zoroark from earlier. Oh, but don't you worry, his 6th pick is a secret, and this 6th pick is absolute bogus, because I'll tell you, this battle between Alder and N is a 4-on-4, and guess which two Pokemon N doesn't end up using? Timple and Zekrom. So depending on who this last Pokemon is, it's going to heavily determine what kind of champion Alder really is in the manga. Black is currently traveling with Iris, and he happens to be around where the battle is happening, but he's so bummed out that he couldn't get the help of the Swords of Justice. Iris tries to cheer him up in her own way, but he claims that she can never understand how he feels, to which Iris uses it as an opportunity to tease him about a potential crush with either White or Bianca. Black denies this, saying that only his Pokemon understand him. Once Iris finds out that Braviary is with White, she doubles down on his crush on her, to which Black can't stand how annoying she is and wishes that Brave was actually here. And to his amazement, Brave was really there. He came back, and if he came back, you already know who else came back. White, with a fully evolved Superior as well as a whole team of Pokemon. And since she has Volibee now, she was able to return Brave to him. She even surprises him with her new Pokedex. Iris teases them further, and while I'm sure the two really want to catch up, they hear the sounds of a nearby battle, where, gee, wouldn't you guess it, the manga completely disrespects Alder, because with their heroes there to witness it, Alder falls to N. Not to his Zekrom, but to a combination of Zorua and frickin' Gigi. Gigi, this innocent typing that we knew from like the beginning of the manga, straight up destroys the old man and his team. Now, to be fair, he did have 3 Pokemon that were weak to fire types, but still, Gigi? I know there was that premonition with the bright future to defeat the champion and all, but come on. Even Black's Emboar doesn't have that capability. That means innately, Gigi has been like the strongest Pokemon in the whole manga. N keeps gassing up Gigi, and with White there, N decides to stir the pot by asking White if she wants him to turn Gigi to be a part of shows, to which she gives him a firm no. N sees how White has grown in raising Servine and other Pokemon, and that she as a trainer has learned to listen to the voices of Pokemon, and White actually thanks her for this experience. And once she does, she speaks to Gigi directly and tells her that she's free to do what she wishes to do, and that if she ever wants to perform in shows, she can always come back to White. And if that day ever comes, she won't let N stand in the way. She will fight him. Best character growth by a long shot, bro. Easy. And is also impressed, but not in a way that I deem appropriate. He straight up grabs her because he thinks that they share the same ideal. To which, of course, Black is not having any of it. He pulls her aside, and the two are taken aback as Cedric Juniper, Professor Juniper's father, comes in with his samurai swinging, telling them that they shouldn't let him get away. The three of them bring out their fully evolved starters and fight off N's weakened Pokemon. Literally, Bo, Black's Emboar, and White don't hold back when fighting Gigi either. N decides to calmly retreat when Black tries to tell him that he's gonna go with N as well to save all the gym leaders, to which N doesn't even have to do anything to win but play his favorite game, the psychological game. He questions Black if he thinks he can defeat him the way he is, to which N states that even his Pokemon know that if they were to follow Black's commands, they would lose in the state that they're in. Black realizes the truth and asks Musha to eat his head, which for the first time ever, she refuses to. N goes up to Black and says that his dream doesn't taste good anymore, and that Munna has no reason to stay because it was only there because he kept on feeding it, a relationship of convenience. But now that Black's dream has dwindled, Munna is gone. Black and Munna never had a real friendship. White tries to calm Black down, but Black can't take it and collapses right then and there. And while N is happy he's defeated Alder, he knows that Black will stand again alongside Reshiram. Volume 8 begins with a bunch of people entering the Pokemon League, because this time around, all of the trainers who obtained 8 gym badges battle in a tournament, with the victor being the one who's able to take on the Pokemon League. The Elite Four members gather, and they're split between whether they should interfere with Team Plasma or not, but ultimately, Caitlyn decides to step up and use the Gothitelle to find out where the Unit gym leaders are being held hostage. Drayden announces that the 31 trainers as contestants for this year's Pokemon League, and Black isn't one of them. Not only because he's knocked out, but also because he only has 7 gym badges. White reflects on how something like this happened before in Route 4, but how different this is, and we see Black in a dream state trying to chase after and plead with Munna. As he slowly begins to wake up, Cedric, Juniper, and White realize that Gigi was a Tepic that Cedric owned his lab way back that N freed a year ago. That, along with Snivy, who's now White's superior, were N's first Pokemon that he liberated. Juniper wonders if N Zoroa was the same one who spied on her lab, and Black wakes up to confirm the suspicions because he also dealt with the same Zoroa. He gets up and starts to get dressed, and White asks him where he's going, and Black says he's going to the Vemma town. White again tries to talk some sense into him, as she's gone through the same psychological warfare that he's currently being subjected to. White encourages him to believe in his dream, to which Black says that he just saw a dream of chasing after Musha, a nightmare. Before that, another dream of the Lightstone getting stolen. Till now, all he's ever dreamed of was the Pokemon League. He was a simple kid, but now, pure dreams like that don't exist for him anymore. He's given up on them. Any which way, it's not like he can compete with 7 badges. The TV gets his attention, and he sees the contestants go through the badge check gates, and his team just looks at him with sadness. Black realizes that he didn't just promise Musha they'll win the league, but rather, he promised his whole team. He stares down his Pokemon, and decides to take on the Pokemon League. Black flies in the Pokemon League gates, where he meets Drayden, and argues that since the actual tournament begins tomorrow, he still has time to enter during the opening ceremony. And to that, before Drayden can give him a proper answer, Black wastes no time in challenging Drake to a battle. The two duke it out, and Drayden is winning by a clear mile. Black is using Brave, but he has doubts that Brave will leave, similar to the way that Musha did. Drayden takes Brave down in this one-on-one fight, and Black is about to concede, saying that he's satisfied because he and his team have given it their all. When suddenly, Black hears Clay's voice. The gate behind Drayden opens with a snowy onslaught, but from the onslaught, Caitlyn's Gothitelle appears in order to speak to Black. The gym leaders speak to Black through Gothitelle's telepathy, and while they're unaware of their present location, they encourage Black to recall all the times he won against them. He won only because he heard his Pokemon's voices. He won because of the bond and trust between his Pokemon. It's not any kind of deception. It's the truth. It's Black's truth. And with that, Black regains everything he's lost and immediately retaliates against Drayden using the Cold Air from earlier to weaken Trotagon and take it out in battle. And with that victory, Drayden presents Black as the final contestant of the Pokemon League, to which White and the others are all shocked and immediately chase after him as he and his Pokemon are celebrating the next step closer to their dream. The next day, the tournament takes place, and we immediately jump into the top 8, which consists of Black, Iris, this guy named Gray, who obviously is a Team Plasma person, this guy who's obviously Looker, Sharon, Marlin, this youngster who remember him for a future video, and this mysterious other guy? Yeah, there's at least one other character here who's actually mysterious. It's Black versus Looker, and Black wins, leading Looker to go on his investigation against Team Plasma, primarily against Gray. Sharon beats his kid Leo, but Sharon demonstrates a rather cold personality. He's not like himself at all, to the point where even Black is concerned. It's Marlin versus the Hoodman, and surprisingly, the Hoodman wins. And he's glad because just by observing the league, he got to benefit through research and insight. And finally, it's Iris versus Gray, where Iris makes a mockery of him and wins despite having the type of disadvantage. Bryson becomes suspicious of the Hoodman and his BM because the hostage gym leaders have no memory of where they are, so Bryson thinks that the Hoodman must have commanded BM to wipe their memories. So he goes on a spy mission. But not alone, because guess who's trying something else that's new? White. Goated, bro, I'm telling you. Now, if you're wondering where the Escalating City gym leaders are, they're busy stopping the Shadow Triad from capturing the Swords of Justice, so they actually have a better role here than they do in the games. And there's a small tease for Genesect, which again, we'll touch upon in a future video. Black takes on Iris in a heated battle, and in the semifinals where the two are sharing their emotions on why it should be them to defeat N. Both are saying this for the sake of others. And while Black does win, he promises Iris to take on her dream as well. White goes to do some espionage work on Marlon to see what he learned about the Hoodman. But though White is trying new things, it doesn't mean that she's good at it, because Marlon sees right through it. Looker is spying on the spy and is shocked to learn that he's not the only one suspicious of this guy. Marlon says that while there's nothing odd about him, the only thing that threw him off is that Marlon can tell that he didn't own all 8 gym badges, which, I mean, that's a huge red flag, but he tells White that he battled fair and square, so it should be fine because his skills are the real deal. But the person who Marlon really finds suspicious is Charon. As Charon fights the Hoodman, we see that Marlon told White that something is gripping Charon's heart. White goes to talk to Leo, the kid who Charon beat last round, who's cheering for Charon to win. And while the kid is shy around girls, his support for Charon is still strong. But in the middle of the fight, we see Charon treat Snivy poorly, and also see that he's held it back from evolving. Charon opts to win the fight with Unpheasant and walks away. And when Leo goes to show Charon his support, Charon just brushes it aside and walks away. Enraged, Black yells at Charon asking him what's gotten into him, treating someone who supported him like that and treating his own Pokemon the way he did. Charon tells Black that he doesn't care about weak things anymore, and that he's figured out what he's wanted this whole time. All his life, he's pushed aside his own needs to take care of others, and finally, he knows what he wants for himself. Power. His Boulder evolves and Diglett and Ember clash in a battle of emotions as Black attempts to save Charon from whatever it is that he's going through, while Marshall and Grimsley come to know of the tremors of N's castle beneath them. White finds Gray and the Hoodman scheming things together, but unfortunately, she's caught by them. While Charon is fighting Black while repeating the words of Team Plasma, Gray reveals himself to be Zinzalin, and Zinzalin is impressed as Charon has become a member of Team Plasma in both heart and soul. Looker comes in to save White, and White yells at Black telling him what's happened to Charon. But at that moment, the Hoodman teleports White away with him, essentially kidnapping White. Black and Drayden try to stop the battle to prioritize White and the audience's safety, but Charon refused to abide by that and takes the battle to the rooftop. And while I would love to cover this battle in full here, I do plan to make another video talking about just Black and Charon one day, so I'll save most of her for then. For the sake of the story, Charon started to become power hungry once he saw N and Zekrom, and even tells Black that Muna left him because he was weak. But as they clash, the two of them are put into a dream sequence where the two go back to their childhood, and Charon returns to his former self. And it's all because Musha returned to Black as a Basharna. We later find out that all that's happened is that Muna wanted to support Black even further, so it went off to find a means to evolve, and eventually it ran into Caitlyn, who helped it evolve using a moonstone. And once it evolved, it returned right back to support Black. Now reunited with Musha, Black is filled with rage as Team Plasma used Charon and took White hostage. In this flurry of emotion, Reshiram awakens, and the two head off to fight N. Right before Black heads off to fight N, one of the craziest panels in the series, where he's coming down with Reshiram looking like an angel from heaven, we see the Swords of Justice send the Escalating City gym leaders and the Shadow Triad away flying, with the intention of hurting the Shadow Triad alone. While the Shadow Triad loses, they manage to use Genesect to petrify the 3 legendary Pokemon and let them sink into the abyss, while Keldeo manages to escape. Meanwhile, there's a full-on war happening at N's castle, and when I mean war, I mean it. Every Team Plasma member appears to fight, and we see the gym leaders tied to a stake. The Elite Four alongside Black, Iris, and Drayden challenge Team Plasma, but it's not enough. Ghitsis tells Black that even with Reshiram, Black can't make his way to the king, as he and the 7 Sages are there to stop him. But from behind Black, we see the craziest ensemble crew join the fight. Everyone is here. Every single side character that we've seen in the story comes by to help Black make his way to N. And when I say everyone, I mean literally everyone, even the random hiker dude from the first volume. Together with their efforts, they actually managed to free the Unimate gym leaders, leading to a truly climactic battle between everyone in this story. Black makes his way to N, and while Cedric, Looker, and Leo try to help him, Black knows that only Reshiram can stop Zekrom. And so N and Black clash in one final duel. Black and N go at it, but Black has the disadvantage. Cedric uses this time to support Black in other ways by upgrading his Pokedex with info on the legendary dragons, leading Black to learn more about them and giving him the edge in the fight. But not only that, as he's fighting, Black realizes that the only way for him to win is to face N with the same depth of feeling that Reshiram has for Zekrom, harmonizing with the dragon and in turn, hearing its voice. N lights up and recognizes Black's growth. He recognizes that Reshiram has truly chosen him to be the hero of truth. Zekrom and Reshiram go through a powerful exchange of Fusion Bolt and Fusion Flare, as these moves do more damage after another. The two Pokemon are at a standoff, but thanks to a Black learned through the Pokedex, Black is able to time his attack perfectly, leading to Zekrom's incineration and defeat. Black and Reshiram have won. Despite this, N and Zekrom flee to N's castle, where White is also seen to be in the care of N's sisters. Amanda, her superior, is still seen to be protecting White, but N's sisters obviously have no intent on harming White. All they know is that the Hoodmen brought her there, and they don't know why either, because the guy does whatever he wants to do. But White isn't even concerned about that anymore because White sees Gigi. Anthea and Concordia explain that N released all of his Pokemon that he lived with before his final battle, but Zorua and Gigi decide to come back. The sisters then go on to explain that they took care of N and that N all of his life grew up around Pokemon who were mistreated by humans in this very room. That Ghitsis adopted him so that he could manipulate N by only letting him hear voices of abused Pokemon year after year. But after seeing Black and White and hearing the voices of their own Pokemon, N was able to understand and even told the Pokemon that he released that if there's a person out there that they really like, there's nothing wrong in staying with them. N and Black continue to clash in the depths of the castle, and the sisters explain that though Ghitsis was successful with his brainwashing, after stepping outside and hearing Black's Tepig's voice, that was the first time that N discovered the truth. And just like White, he first tried to reject the truth, but eventually he had learned to accept it. Gigi, on the other hand, is having tons of fun in N's room, and just like White said, Gigi eventually returned to her as a Pokemon former, but under N's ownership, as White agrees that she is now N's Pokemon, and the two partner up once again to go and find Black and N. The second round of their battle continues and both sides are struggling, when suddenly N and Black are both shocked when two Zekroms appear. Even Zekrom is confused, but in this time, Black commands Reshiram to attack, finishing them off once and for all. And that's when we see that Zorua returned to N to help it in battle. N is confused as to why Zorua returned him, but Black explains that it's obvious, and N understands as well. Zorua and Gigi both want to be with him. N playfully teases Zorua for interfering in the battle, and is just happy to be reunited with him. N and Black take some time to relax and just be with their Pokemon, when all of a sudden, Ghitsis arrives, belittling N, revealing to Black for the first time that N is his adopted son. Ghitsis reveals that his whole plan was to use N from the get-go, leaving him in the dark of his true plan to rule the world through Pokemon liberation, because after all, who else could use Pokemon if the world was liberated from them? Ghitsis needed N to reawaken Zekrom and lead the people, but in trying to be a hero, N was defeated. But unlike the games here, Ghitsis doesn't let this defeat stop him. In fact, he realizes that since there's no one else to witness this, all he needs to do is get rid of Black to remove this inconvenient truth, and asks Hydreigon to burn him to a crisp. Reshiram is too weakened to help Black, but Black has a whole team of other Pokemon, but so does Ghitsis. So, paralleling Black's first battle with N, both of their teams go for an all-out fight. Ghitsis has the type advantage with every matchup, and that's because Ghitsis has been keeping an eye on him this whole time. Black is being surrounded by the flames, but Ghitsis is going on about all the different ways he used N and all the ploys that he's been scheming. Black is hoping that N didn't hear any of it, because he himself cannot bear to hear the way that N has been used, and is the most enraged he's been in the entire story. Even though Black is losing, he knows what he has to do to survive. One last time, he calls upon Musha, and his mind goes blank, leading him to figure out the strategy, giving him a way to safely maneuver his Pokemon so that he has the advantage on them. Ghitsis tries to escape, but Costa imprisons him with Stone Edge, and Black successfully subdues Ghitsis, at least for now. Meanwhile, the entire Elite Four has been fighting off the Hoodmen and the Legendary Genies, but he manages to make his escape in the end, with the Elite Four almost learning nothing about him, though he does claim that he will meet them again. And while Black is contemplating what to do with Ghitsis, White returns to Black holding his hands, with a silhouette pattern that could only be described as a pattern of love. Black and White decide to head down to save the members of Team Plasma when N wakes up and asks them to wait a moment. Black is protective of White, but White eases him up, and the three of them speak, and asks White if she was able to figure out what Gigi wants, and White tells him that she was, and that she was only able to ever hear Gigi's voice because of N's help. N is in a state that I can't even describe. He never thought that the three of them would ever be able to have such a relaxed conversation like this, and he claims that this might be what he was longing for all this time. Black tells N that he's also happy they can speak like this now, and how he saw his gentle dream when they first fought, and that it's because he saw that dream that Black knew that even though he felt like he could never forgive N, he knew N was someone who always wanted what was best for the Pokemon. That was a truth that he absolutely was sure of. N tells Black that he began to have doubts in what he fought for in the very same fight in the Accumula town, and as he traveled around Unova, that doubt grew more and more. He fought alongside Zekrom to see how strong his ideals were, but in the end, he realized that though he could hear the voices of Pokemon, he could never understand them the way that Black did. And gets up and apologizes to Black as he needs to figure out what he needs to do. And with one farewell to them, he sets off with Zekrom, even leaving Zoro behind, and with all of Unova there to witness his departure, and flies off into the sunset. Ghitsis watches from the cracks of the rocks, and Reshiram cries out loudly. White and Black think that it's because Reshiram feels like it's lost half its soul, when suddenly, Gigi, White, and Black are all being drawn to Reshiram. Black quickly realizes what this is. It's the opposite of when Reshiram was awakened from the Lightstone. This time around, it's the reverse, and everything around it is being sucked into the Lightstone, since Reshiram has finished his battle with Zekrom. Black keeps White protected, but Ghitsis tells Black that she will be sucked in and turned into stone as well. Black is concerned, but hesitantly asks Ghitsis that if he's just frustrated because he can't do anything from being in the middle of the rocks, when Ghitsis reveals that it's actually the contrary, because Black has provided a perfect means for Ghitsis to get rid of him. Black gets lifted into the air and is now stuck with Reshiram. Ghitsis is shown to have been released from the rocks, thanks to the Hoodmans being him from earlier, and he's shown to be very pleased with the events that have occurred. Ghitsis departs and tells Black that this will be the last time that they ever meet. White is frantic and desperately wants to help Black out of there, but Black tells her to stay away from him. As White rushes off to get help, Black calls her boss one last time. She turns around and he tells her that he hasn't broken his promise to her. White is confused, but Black reminds her that he promised that if he ever made it to the Pokemon League, he would wear the BW Agency logo to show it to the world. White reflects upon their journey, and Black tells her his plan as to how he's going to show it off and present her agency to the world. But with a worried smile, he states that he messed up. As Reshiram collapses in on itself, Black asks White if he worked hard enough to pay for the equipment that he damaged. With his last breath, his concern or care wasn't for him, but it was for her and for their time together. And before he can call her boss one more time, Reshiram and Black turn into the Lightstone. White trembles and goes to pick up the Lightstone, telling Black that he doesn't need to worry about paying her anymore. But as she goes to pick it up, the stone begins to lift up into the air and flies off into the void, leaving White in anguish and absolute despair. Black and White were together from the beginning of this journey, and while they did have their time away from each other, they were never truly separated from each other, as they lived in each other's hearts. But now, Black is gone. In Pokemon Adventures, it's never been the case that two characters have been around each other for this long and developed romantic feelings for each other. It's never been this obvious either. This is the first time where we see a relationship go from absolute strangers to lovers in the series. And while the two cared and supported for each other, while the two truly fell in love with each other and could have begun a new life together, fate had other plans in store for them, as White is left broken and Black is no more. But what happens next? How does White handle the loss, and will they ever find the Lightstone again? Will they ever be able to save Black from it? In the real world, these questions never got answered until around 7 years later, but in terms of the story, we find out after a 2-year time skip. Ghitsis meets up with the Hoodman, who reveals himself to be Team Plasma scientist Colress, and the Team Plasma members retire from their efforts, with the particular girl expressing her concerns in wanting to stay with En's Pokemon, but En's sisters encourage her to go and give her En's pendant until he returns. This story isn't over just yet. Next time, we cover an all-new love story with an all-new love triangle with the story of Pokemon Black 2 and White 2. And through this new story, we will also get to see the final conclusion to the love story between Black and White. Stay tuned.